Morning, everybody. I'm Dwayne Becker. I'm a mortgage agent and an investor. And today we're going to be talking with Bruce Smith. He's a consultant with Cask Management Group. He's based in London for the last 20 years with a focus on private financing as an accredited lender. Bruce holds a Bachelor of Business Management degree and is also an investor himself and understands the needs of the investment community. He's a past contributor to publications such as London Incorporated Magazine, My Enterprise Magazine, Canadian Mortgage Professional, and The Londoner. We welcome Bruce to our discussion.
Oh, thank you very much, Dwayne. I'm glad to be here.
So today we'd like to kind of discuss the 6 different groups of lenders and why would be beneficial to lenders or to investors to understand who those 6 different groups are.
Yeah, I think it's really critical that lenders or investors understand the different lender groups. I have investors come to me and they sort of banging their head against the wall saying, I've been to the bank and I can't get qualified. Well, perhaps your deal isn't a bankable deal, so you should know who those different lenders are. So there's 6 basic lenders. The first lender, we call that the love money group. So love money is, your friends, your family, your parents, people that are going to give you money just because they love you. They're not necessarily concerned about the return on investment or how successful you are. They're just giving you money because they love you. So that's love money. Second group, we call it dumb money. So people say, what's dumb money? And I say, well, dumb money are people that would give you money. They're not dumb people. They're successful in their profession. Perhaps they're a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant. They're going to lend you money, but they don't really do it for a living. It's a part-time thing. They really don't understand risk assessment. They really don't have the tools to analyze deals. But that group exists. So I affectionately call that the dumb money. We'll get back to that in a minute. The next group are your traditional banks, your A lenders. There are lenders that trade on the TSX that no one's ever heard of, but they're there. We call those the A lender groups, and that would be your typical bank. Beyond that, the next group, we call them B lenders. They're the alternative lenders. They're credit unions, trust companies, subsidiaries of foreign banks. That's another group of lenders. And they have, the A lenders have the tightest box. They have the most rules that you need to qualify for. B lenders would have a slightly bigger box. So that's an option for people. Beyond that, if you can't qualify with A or B lenders, now you're looking at private money. And there's 2 groups of private money lenders. There's institutional private lenders, and they're usually called MICs, mortgage investment corporations. And all that is a group of people that have pooled their money together, started the corporation, and they lend their money out within that corporation. And of course, they have rules that need to be followed too. Geographically, they'd have rules, type of property they'd want to lend on, they'd have rules for that. So that's the first group of private investors. And the last group of private investors are just individuals like myself, accredited investors who lend our money. We do this full time. We do this for a living. So we do have, sort of the training. My background is in finance. So I do have, ability to do risk assessment. I can pull credit reports. I have access to all the tools I need to do risk assessment. So those are the basic 6 groups.
All right. So would you not just, if you're investing, would you not just go straight to private money, or why would you need to know about the different groups?
Well, for myself, I would always say go for the cheapest money. So if you qualify, then why wouldn't you go for a bank deal, like for bank financing? To me, it makes the most sense. So even though I'm a private lender, I'm telling you, go get bank financing. Where private money comes in is, where you don't qualify, and or it might make more sense to go private financing just because there's less hoops to jump through. So for example, let's say you were doing a flip and you only needed the money for several months, and you might say, okay, I'm going to go to a private lender. I really don't care what the rate is, because the rate's just part of the transaction, part of the flip. I build it into my costs. So it might be simpler for me to go to a private lender and get a 3-month open mortgage than trying to go to a bank and negotiating a line of credit or a variable rate mortgage, something that I could easily get out of. So there are instances, where you want to use private money. If you're doing a BRRRR strategy, a lot of time, the traditional lenders are only going up to 80% of the value of the house. You want a BRRRR to 90%. So it could be a situation where you're putting private money, in second position in behind that first mortgage and going to 90% loan to value or going to 95% loan to value, going to 100% loan to value. Like anything is possible when you're dealing with private lending.
So with private lending, there's no actual set of rules that you have to follow. You can kind of make it up as you go along.
Well, yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. It's really common sense lending. So if you're dealing with banks or B lenders, it's very ratio driven or it's rule driven. I always say there is no common sense in lending. So when you're dealing with a bank, people will come to me and they say, well, I can buy this rental property and it's $2,000 a month to rent and my mortgage payment would be $1,200. Why won't the bank lend me the money? There's no common sense. And I'd say, yeah, there is no common sense. You don't qualify with the bank. From my perspective as a private lender, it's all common sense. So I will look at credit. I will look at the equity in the property. I will look at the income, your employment. So I still look at all the same information a bank would look at, but not one of those things alone influences my decision. It's really the total package. And ultimately it comes down to, do I think you can pay me? If I think you can pay me, then I'll lend you the money. And so it really comes down to a common sense solution.
So Bruce, what exactly does a credit report tell you?
Well, first of all, credit reports are very hard to read. So if you're not experienced reading credit reports, you look at it and you say, well, what is this mess of jumbled numbers? Because that's really what it is. But for me, it tells me, the amount of debts that they have. It tells me, if they are a good payer, if they pay on time, that'll be reflected in the credit report. It tells me about any judgments that they have, any past problems. But really, it's a summary of their liabilities, and it tells me their payment history. And that's why it's important as a private lender. If I get a credit report and I see they've never paid anybody on time, they're in arrears with everybody, then I know they're going to be in arrears with me on their mortgage. So I'm probably not going to lend in that situation. If they've got a good payment history, they pay on time, they don't have an excessive amount of debt, then yeah, that's the type of thing that I'm looking for.
So if there is a blemish on their credit report, does that kill the deal, or what would be, shall we say, if there's a blemish on their report and they tell the truth about what happened, is that something that can be worked out, or is that a deal killer?
Yeah, I think for me, I want to know the truth. I want to know the skeletons in the closet. So, and that's, I think, what kills deals with me is people haven't been honest. They don't mention liabilities that we will find out about, or they own other homes that they haven't disclosed. So it really comes back to their credibility. So yeah, if they have blemishes, yeah, just be upfront about it. Yeah, I had a consumer proposal 5 years ago, lost my job, I was sick, was in a car accident, whatever the problem was, I can work with that. So it's really more important that, yeah, they're just very honest and open about their situation, and then I can deal with that. But yeah, I'm going to uncover the skeletons in the closet as someone who does risk assessment. I know what to look for. I know where to look for skeletons in the closet. Now, your dumb money lenders, maybe they don't, but someone like myself would. So, but yeah, bad credit on its own isn't a concern, as long as you've got good cash flow and and the loan to value is perhaps not as high as it could be. But ultimately, yeah, my decision: am I going to get paid? And if I think I'm going to get paid, I'm likely to lend.
So you mentioned cash flow. So what would your definition of good cash flow be?
Well, I don't think there is a definition. I'm just looking for positive cash flow, and I'll use the example that if I have a property that's saying generating $1,000 a month in positive cash flow, to me that's the same as having 10 properties generating $100 a month in cash flow. So you're basically at the same point. So I'm just looking for people that aren't into a negative cash flow situation, because it's just not sustainable. I know I have one client. Well, we have a mutual client, and they have 12 properties, and they have a negative cash flow of about $100,000 a year before they even pay their property taxes. So just the difference between their rents and their income is like $100,000, and we're saying this is not a sustainable. You're exercising the BRRRR strategy, and you're not BRRRing to buy another property. You're BRRRing just to pay debt on existing mortgages. So we call that sort of the BRRRR to bankruptcy strategy. So again, I'm looking for people that they do have positive cash flows in their portfolio, or the property they're buying is going to have positive cash flow and it's sustainable. And it could be a situation where perhaps they're only using us for a year and they're going to refinance out to more traditional financing. Well, as long as you're going to be positive cash flow at some point, and I know that you can get that bank financing and take me out after a year, then I might look at that as well, even if you had negative cash flow. So it's part of the equation. Again, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the credit, and I'm looking at the equity in the property.
All right. So you talk about requalifying for a different source of money to take out your position. Is that part of the overall investment strategy, or should that be part of the overall investment strategy when working with a private lender?
Yeah, I think for private money, for me, I want to know how I'm going to get out before I get in. It's easy to get you into private money. You'd be surprised how easy it is to get private money. But how do we get you out of the private money? And again, so that means there has to be a change. It's either, the income is improving, the credit is improving, the property is going up in value. Something needs to change. So I want to know exactly what my exit strategy is. So how I'm getting out before I get in, because private money is not sustainable long term. Why would you be paying 8% on a private first mortgage or 12, 15% on a second mortgage when you could be paying 3% at a bank? It doesn't make any sense. So private money should be viewed as a short-term solution to bridge to something better. And that's the way I approach it with people. I say, yeah, I have no problem lending you the money. And I do have clients that second, third year, they're still using me, and that's okay. But you should have a strategy for, how are you going to take me out? And that's important to me, that there is a strategy. There are other private lenders that may not care if there's an exit strategy, but I do have concerns. Again, do they want to keep you in private money for 10 or 20 years? I do know investors. Yeah, I've got private money out for the same guy for 10 or 20 years. Well, who's helping him get out of that situation? Why isn't someone working with that person to try to move them back to more traditional financing? So it doesn't make any sense.
So who would help a client go from private money to a more traditional lender?
I'd be working with a mortgage broker, because part of the mortgage broker's job is to put you into the best position possible. So Dwayne, someone like yourself, you would be suggesting to them, the type of financing they need. That's another thing I don't understand, why people don't use mortgage brokers more often, because they have the strategy in place already and they have the lenders in place already. So yeah, you're not banging your head against the wall. Well, I was turned down by your bank. Well, if you'd been to your mortgage broker, he would have told you didn't qualify at the bank. So, you just wasted all that time, trying to qualify with a lender you were never going to qualify for. So a credible mortgage broker should be able to look at your situation and say, okay, yeah, this is the type of lender you need. Yeah, you need love money. You need dumb money. You're bankable, your alternative lender, your MIC, or your true private, and he can make that decision for you.
So Bruce, you talked about dumb money before. What part does dumb money play in investing, and why would that be important for investors?
Well, it's an important classification for investors, for those that don't qualify for more traditional financing. So if you can't qualify for bank financing, alternative lenders, MICs, or true privates, then you want to source out some dumb money. So it's important, and it shouldn't be overlooked. And there's no shame in going after that. You're going to look at things like JV money. Let's say you're doing a JV deal. Yeah, you're looking for dumb money. You're not going to your banker and saying, will you do this JV deal with me? The bank's not going to do a JV deal with you. So, you're looking maybe at like a needed vendor take-back. So vendor take-backs are could be very effective, and especially on commercial type deals. But you're not, again, you're not going to your banker and getting a vendor take-back deal. So there are products and opportunities to use that type of money. And again, usually you're not, there's not the scrutiny that there would be when you're going to a more traditional lender, and that's can be advantageous. Now, I don't share that. I always think if you have your ducks lined up, you can get traditional financing. So I think the biggest mistake investors make is they don't have their ducks lined up. And I'll have people come to me, well, yeah, Bruce, I'm looking for 8% money on a 80% loan to value on this house, period. And that's their presentation to me. Okay, give me more details. And who are you? Like, I like to see, send me a net worth statement and a credit report. When no one's ever asked me that before. Well, any legitimate lender is going to ask you, your bank would ask you for that. Why wouldn't any legitimate lender ask you for that type of information? And that's where it just blows my mind that they're just not so unprepared to go and get financing. And again, I think that goes back to using a mortgage broker like yourself. Then they're properly prepared. They've got their ducks lined up. If you get your ducks lined up, getting financing is really not that hard. It's not as hard as people make it out to be. It's pretty easy as long as you have your ducks lined up, because you know with which lender group you're going to qualify for.
You mentioned a vendor take back. So what place would that take? Where would a vendor take back come into a transaction?
Well, I'll use the example when I bought my first house. I was a full-time university student, so I was 18 going to university. I knew I couldn't go into the bank and get a mortgage. They weren't going to lend a full-time student a mortgage. So we negotiated with the sellers to hold the mortgage for a year. So we did a vendor take-back mortgage. They held in first position, and a year went by, and then we refinanced with the bank. So that was a perfect example of using vendor take-back in that situation, because I couldn't qualify for any type of financing. So that was advantageous. When you're dealing with commercial properties, there's a lot of vendor take-back involved, because you're looking at 35% down on commercial properties. A lot of people don't have 35% down on commercial, so they need the vendor, the seller, to hold some paper in second position behind their first mortgage. So it's quite common in commercial deals.
So it's a way to help you get into the game if perhaps you don't have that high net worth. So like a vendor take back would be a fantastic way to help someone get started, right? If they're just sort of starting out.
Yeah, I think the trick is to know where you're at, and then based on what your individual criteria are, where you're at, then you make that decision. How am I going to get into the market based on where I'm at today? So, if you've got nothing but you've got high net worth parents or parents with money, then love money. Use the love money. If you can qualify for a bank, then use bank financing. But it's understanding what you qualify for, and having your ducks lined up, and then if it's got to be got to use dumb money, then source out dumb money. So. Now, I know as mortgage brokers, you don't really deal with the dumb money, because part of a mortgage broker's responsibility is to explain to their clients, the lenders, why this is a bad deal. So I know you've got an investor disclosure document you had to use that, this is, you can lend the money, but here's why it's a bad idea. So dumb money guys, again, they're not asking the right questions. So, but that's all good. It's all good. It's, you access whatever funds that you can access.
Yeah, you have to get started somewhere.
Exactly.
So today we talked about the 6 different lender groups and how each lender group has their position. We were discussing with Bruce Smith of Cast Management Group. You can find him at castmanagementgroup.com. You can find me at beckwoodfinancial.com. And thanks so much for joining us today. Have a great day. Cheers.